Out there, people. This is Nick Cicada, Denver's favorite mail order cartoonist. I often claim to be, or I'm pretty sure I'm the only asexual out here, and in the Queen City of the Plains, Denver, Colorado. And I think it is true. There's 700,000 people, and it's the 19th largest city in the country. And I have yet to meet a single asexual out here. Doesn't happen too often. Sure, sure. Bisexual, for the purposes of definition here, I mean someone who is fundamentally incapable on a psychological and physiological level of experiencing sexual attraction. The same definition, of course, would apply to aromantics, of which I also am one, being someone who is physiologically incapable. Uh, the one I hear tossed around the most is aro ace, aro slash ace. I think that's an applicable term. Yeah, because it's for both. Right. The reverse term. Not all. It should be noted. Not all asexuals prefer. Not all asexuals prefer monogamy. In fact, I don't think most asexuals even have a particular preference between monogamy or polyamory or anything like that because they don't really put in the effort, so to speak, to try and form any kind of cohesive relationship with anyone. But in your case, you would be an amatoromantic and an allosexual, which is just about everyone. From amatoromantic is the opposite of aromantic. Allosexual is the opposite of asexual. So you're an amatoromantic allosexual. Amatoromantic, as far as I'm amato romantic. AMATO. Right. Yes. Hmm. Well, see that's the paradoxic aspect. That's the paradoxic aspect of being asexual and aromantic because you don't typically utilize terminology like partner, dating, stuff like that. If I were because you have an inordinate tendency to establish your own personhood and your own being entirely on your own terms. You can't really use anyone to do that for you. And so, if I had anything, it would be a platonic friendship, preferably with a girl. I find that girls are much easier to get along with and much more emotionally in touch with themselves and all. So, sure. It could be an asexual guy if I came across any, but from everything I've dealt with, I do prefer having female friends, and preferably she would be asexual, aromantic, just like me, also equally incapable of experiencing sexual, romantic tension or attraction, and just call each other friends and do stuff all the time and go to movie. Watch shows, whatever it is pals do, but never have sex. She'd never want to have sex with anyone. I'd never want to have sex with anyone, and we'd get along pretty well because, all things considered, we'd be about the only right people for each other. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, tertiary friends are fine so long as so long as we're each other's best friend. But tertiary friends are fine. It would work out the best, of course, if those friends were also asexual slash aromantic. But if they're not, just so long as they don't seduce my friend or anything, and try and screw the friendship up, and kind of take all the time and attention. Right, right. If everyone's asexual, then everyone's on a completely equal playing field. Yeah. Right. The way I see it, I want to be the whole package for someone, and whenever I'm reminded of my inadequacy and my ability to engage in sexual intercourse, it just reminds me that I'm lacking something or I'm missing something, which is the obvious implication, the logical conclusion that one would draw. Because if I wasn't, then she wouldn't need to go out and get a boyfriend, and yeah, it's quite a blow to the ego. No, I've never had a main partner, but I do think I do think that all too often asexual people do tend to kind of wall themselves off from the wider world. So I do try and get out there and interact with as many different types of people as possible. And if there's someone who I really think I could be great friends with, and we could really get along and have a great time, even if they're not asexual, I'll give them a chance. I'll certainly provide them with the opportunity. I'm not closed-minded or anything. And I think it doesn't really make much sense to only interact with asexuals, considering how few of them there are.
Okay, so yeah, thank you. Unfortunately, I was literally not coming in. Can you hear me now, Memes of Destruction? Apparently, I had not...
I can hear you fine.
Yeah, thankfully you can hear me. Unfortunately, the audience could not hear me. So, since I have such a small audience, it's very difficult to find those types of problems. However, I just added a microphone... and now it seems to be working. Okay, so we got all of your answers. I can edit in later audio or some kind of thing that we can do. Okay, good. Yeah, so we can hear each other now.
Sure,
thankfully, again, you came through totally fine. So, and that's the most important part. Okay.
Yeah, right. Just send over the audio file, however it's correctly edited.
I'll send over you the whole thing as it's done, and then we'll figure it out later. So, okay.
Okay.
Now, okay, so to get back to what we were talking about, I wanted to make a comparison to I try to be a vegetarian, and I have friends who are not vegetarians, but I like to eat, I like to encourage them to be vegetarians, but I don't believe that it's a failure on my part if they choose to engage in their desire to have carnivorous food. So why does that feel like when you have a platonic friend who isn't your partner or your main best friend has sex while they're a what did you say, a matosexual or ace?
They're a modaromantic or allosexual.
Yeah, allosexual is what.
A modaromantic or allosexual. Yeah, they're allosexual.
Yeah. Why do you feel that why do you feel the burden to be everything for them in a need that they have that you don't have, that you literally can't fulfill?
Well, because if you couldn't experience a romantic or sexual relationship, then platonic relationships become the most fundamental and important type of relationship it's possible to experience.
At that point.
Right, it's kind of a biological necessity. And so as a result, you kind of have to be very invested and involved with your friendships. You can't really take any half measures. And yeah, if someone has sex while they're your friend, you do feel as if you're married to them, and you just walked in on them having an affair down at the Super 8 motel, and it's
but
not.
That's the point.
Yeah, exactly.
These people aren't your partner, though. These are just your friends. Like, these are the ones who aren't your best friend. These are regular old acquaintances. Like, even
the thing is,
for instance,
if theoretically you can the idea of romance and the idea of that is, well, you can go out into the world, you can find anyone you want. There's so many people, so many fish in the sea. There's so many types.
Yeah.
And the beauty of it apparently is that you can feel some kind of unity with the human species, in that when you have sex, it's this magical, wonderful thing, and you can really
Have you ever had sex? If I can ask, are you?
No, I've never had sex. I am a complete virgin at 22 because I've never felt the desire to have it.
You don't want to.
I'm not what in asexual circles is referred to as sex repulsed. I'm pretty sure I'm sex neutral. I don't particularly care one way or the other about sex. And if I am asked to have sex and we're both completely consenting, we would. But I don't think it would be much fun for either of us because I would not be invested the entire time. It'd be kind of less like someone was having sex with me and more like someone was doing sex to me.
Yeah, they were masturbating using you or something like that, and you had to just
the purpose of sex in and of itself.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's true, I guess. But yeah, I'm confused because you're not, as you said, sex repulsed, but sex neutral. Why you feel that it is your responsibility to prevent, to release others from their desire to have sex? It just
because if someone didn't feel sexual attraction or sexual tension like how I don't, they'd realize it's an extremely freeing experience.
I agree.
The way I see it, sex is a weakness that prevents great achievements and mental things from happening. Like, for instance, if there's a guy and he'll have sex with a hot girl for anything and he'll do things that he wouldn't do otherwise, that's a weakness. If there's a girl and she'll do anything for a hot guy she can have sex with that she wouldn't do otherwise, that's a weakness. Because sexual intercourse is a process that requires, on a fundamental level, the suspension of rational thought. And that's something that I just don't necessarily feel all right with, because I like thinking rationally and I like combing through stuff, and I can't give in to any sort of desires that someone else might have. But in the process, I find that I'm extremely, in being entirely detached from romantic or sexual processes, I find that I'm extremely free. And I just like to kind of share the existence of not having sex with people, because it's great. You never have to worry about what someone thinks of you or your body or anything.
It is. I would agree. But you literally can't. You can't. But like this, in the same way that you don't feel sexual attraction, people do. You can't cure that for them. You know, like they still like.
Well,
like
the way
you
I
can
see
still
it,
wait. If you let me finish 1 second, people can have like I totally agree that people's sex drives and desire for intimacy and stuff can cause problems in their lives, but they also can be great, like huge benefits in their lives and bring people closer together and allow experiences that are on a totally different level, as you say, compared to a platonic love. Like a positive sexual relationship is just another form of interaction. It's just like going to the movies or playing checkers. It's just another form of interaction.
Well, not really, because when you're playing chess, your dopamine isn't dialed up to 9,000, or when you're watching a movie. I mean, some people might have. But
sex might be. That sounds like a good thing. Having your dopamine dial up really good is good.
Comparable.
I
think that sex is ultimately a crutch and an addiction. And as someone who will never experience it, I have only ever had negative experiences with sex. There is literally nothing positive about it.
Well, you said you've had no experiences at all, though.
Right.
So how can you have negative experiences if you've never had any experiences?
Well, I mean, I've had experiences where someone will choose someone who they can have sex with over someone like me who they can't have sex with. So
how is
overall,
that a negative experience? That's what you want.
It's a negative experience caused by sex. It's not a negative experience literally having sex, but sex is the root cause of the negative experience. So I would like to introduce someone to the fantastic existence of a completely platonic, hormone-free time where we just do things and there's none of that sex stuff, and we don't get up to any of that. Because the way I see it, with sex, it is only a net negative. There will never be any positive aspect to the existence of sex in my life. In other people's lives, it may be a totally great, wonderful, magical thing. But in my life,
that's
particularly,
what we're getting to.
There is nothing positive or fun or interesting about sex. And the way I see it, it's like if you got married to someone and they were a total virgin, they'd never had sex before, you slowly kind of guide them into sex to the point where they feel comfortable. I would do the same, except I would slowly guide someone out of sex until they were no longer reliant on it at all, and it never even crossed their mind. Yeah. Because the way I see it, sex is just a hobby, like playing chess, or, think of it like if you're in a relationship with someone, if someone's my friend, they eat loud a lot, that bothers me, I can say, stop eating loud. The same way that if they have sex a lot, I can say, you might just want to give up this sex hobby of yours, because it's kind of destructive to your mind, it's kind of destructive to our friendship, and you could have a lot more, the great thing about a friendship, as opposed to a romantic relationship, is that it's much less volatile because there's no pheromonal transfer involved. There's very little risk, and it can theoretically last way longer than any romantic relationship could. So Yeah, as I see it, I think someone could have a great deal of fun if they just gave up on sex and just said, hey, you know, I'll hang out with Nick every day and we'll have a good time. No sex, but we'll be having a great time otherwise.
Well, what's confusing to me, I'm hearing you I believe I'm hearing you rather clearly, but what is confusing to me is that this is, first of all, it's hard. I mean, you have to understand that since you don't feel sex and you cannot get a positive experience about it, you do not understand the desire or whatever, so you can't see how it's good. So it's perfectly natural for you to see it as is. But my main focus on that is that you seem to want to do this for the logical, you know, need for it and to fulfill things that way. But you do understand emotional fulfillment as well, because you are looking for somebody who has the same worldview that you have. So you do understand the value of emotional connection, even if it's not romantic. But or rather, what I mean is emotional fulfillment that isn't quite logical, but is still quite beneficial.
Mental, platonic fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what I'm after, is to be capable of dissecting, analyzing the process of sexual reproduction from a neutral, detached, third-party perspective with someone. Mm-hmm. It's kind of boring to do that just by myself, so I'd prefer to meet someone who also has no idea what sex is or why anyone has it, and together we can sort of point at it and laugh about how ridiculous it all is, and just kind of say, wow, you know, we're glad we're not like that.
Yeah.
You know, let's go play Monopoly or whatever.
I really hope you get that. What I really want to focus on is this sort of need to almost like to bring people to your side rather than just live and let live.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Why? Like, what if somebody came to you, and I'm sure this has happened. Forgive me. Let me just finish before you respond really quick. As I imagine this has happened a lot. How does it feel to you when people come to you and be like, "Well, why don't you try having sex? It's awesome. It's great. Why don't you at least do it?" You know, how does that feel when someone tries to convince you the other way?
The thing is, I'm relatively open-minded, so if one of my platonic female friends came up to me, we were completely alone, and we were both entirely sober, and she said, hey, do you want to try? I would say, hey, maybe I'll consider that. Maybe the next time I'm around you, maybe we will try. But more often than not, all that's happened is everyone continues to tell me how great it is. Meanwhile, nobody is willing to remotely consider having it with me because, and I understand this being asexual, sex is not something to be treated lightly or tossed around because it can create immense psychological damage. And I would never have it with someone who wasn't entirely 100% sure they wanted to have it with me. I treat it with an immense weight. But no one's willing to show me how great it is, and also no one's willing to just stop having it. So, you know, I'm kind of like, well, why not just stop having it? Because I can't be around people who just...
platonic female
I can't
friends?
just be around people who continuously talk about how great this hobby of theirs is,
that's
but
annoying.
Also just don't ever have it with you know, it's like if you're just taken to a football game, but you don't give a shit about the football game, but everyone's just like, let's go to the football game. I don't give a shit. The way I see it, the benefits of not having sex far outweigh the negatives. For instance, in a hypothetical world...
Let me finish, hold on, while you were on that football game thing, though. But like, what is the problem? Why do you feel like let down when your friends who want to go see football just go on it without you, and then you guys hang out together another day with no football?
Because we wouldn't be hanging out together another day. Like, let's say that the football stadium is a mental prison that they lock themselves into, a la a romantic relationship. So the more they see their boyfriend, the less they're going to be seeing me, because their boyfriend is able to release pheromones and engage in the process of pheromonal
transfer. What if the three of you live together?
Can't do that. I would never live with someone who is having sex with my friend. I might live with a friend, but I'd never live with someone who is having sex with my friend, because I think that's a patently immoral behavior.
Oh, well, that's different. If you think that, if you don't like it, that's one thing. But calling sex, immoral is a bit of a...
I think sex between two consenting adults is fine, but I think that seducing someone who's in a friendship with someone who literally cannot have sex, and then stealing them away, I think that's an immoral behavior. The same as breaking up a marriage or something like that. I think it's absolutely vile.
But if the person agreed to be seduced, then like if they had this agreement with you, it's one thing, I suppose. But like, okay, when you make friends, does this how quickly does this come up? Do you bring up that like, hey, I like hanging out with you, or
I bring up immediately that I'm asexual, but most people just assume that means I want to be left alone. They don't consider that perhaps I could offer them like emotional support or be a shoulder to cry on, but just never have sex with them. That never really crosses their mind.
That seems surprising to me. Do you have like a bunch of friends, male and female, or at least I
have a ton of friends who consistently ignore me on a regular basis. I can't say I've ever had a best friend who is a consistent presence in my life, because specifically, as you can imagine, being gay or being lesbian or being trans, that seems to be pretty easy to make friends around here because there's a lot of that.
The
asexual people are only about asexual people are only about 0.1% of the population is the usual statistic. So it's very alienating. And
it's still part of the queer community, though, right? Although I imagine there's a lot of discrimination interwise, because I think asexuals are probably within the queer community, like similar to bisexuals. They're not viewed. They can have some in-group hierarchy issues. I can see.
I went to an asexual support group. Everyone there, nobody there was ace. Everyone was just trans, but like, the place that put it on had to be like, oh, well, we have to have an asexual support group. And I went to it, and I didn't get any support, and it wasn't worth anything.
You went to an asexual support group, and you were the only ace person there?
Yeah, everyone else was
crazy. That's baffling. That is so what I'm so sorry for you. That's great. That must be so frustrating.
The thing is, nobody... Yeah. It's not that frustrating. I'm used to it. I've become kind of numb to it.
Still,
you have to eventually, at a certain point, as an asexual, you have to become completely numb, and you can't actually develop any like emotional connection to anyone in the same way that someone who's romantic could. You can't actually care about anyone because all you ever feel is complete disappointment when you're reminded of the supposed universal constant of sex.
I think you're just like I think again, I'm not you, but I think the biggest problem is just that like it's okay for other people to have sex, like it's just you shouldn't feel slighted that way. Even if you feel like it is on them.
But it is a negative character trait that lessens the person a great deal in my eyes, because it like I said, it requires the suspension of rational thought, which is probably one of the things that I value the most.
But you still are also suspending your own rational thought by seeking a partner who views things similarly to you. So you don't have a complete issue with that.
I imagine that there is. If there isn't, then I'll just go on like this the remainder of my life, which is fine. But I don't think it's irrational to assume that someone could give up sex. I think that would be pretty easy, because I certainly have never given a shit about it.
Would you say that you close... go ahead. Finish what you're saying.
I would say that in a hypothetical world where nobody had sex, it would be... The pros far outweigh the cons. There would be no such thing as sexual assault, because nobody would be having sex, so let alone there'd be no sexual assault. Pedophilia, rape goes way down, and STDs, there'd be no STDs. Gonorrhea, AIDS, chlamydia, all of that stuff would no longer be transmitted in the slightest. AIDS would literally go extinct. It would have no more hosts to feed on.
I mean, it goes without saying that there is obviously, artificial insemination and stuff, but up until recently, that hasn't been possible. So it does also obviously go without saying, but should be mentioned, that sex literally is required for reproduction. So it has been a necessity for a very long time. It's only really recently that this has become a possibility.
Well, I think people generally think far too much about the survival of the human species or large abstract concepts like that, and they should probably just focus on their own lives. Mm-hmm. I certainly never consider creating a new life. That sounds like a tremendous amount of hassle. Yeah. And it's not appealing at all to me. But I would say that if just half the people on Earth stopped having sex, I mean, still, that's half of sexual assault gone down, half of STDs gone down, and all that negative stuff could be completely avoided if people just stopped having sex, because it sounds stupid. And there's so many things that are wrong and stupid with it.
Do you make friends and then sort of, and everything's fine, and then you find yourself closing off to them if you find out that they've had sex?
I don't really close off to them. They more so close off to me. Well, it's not like it's not like I find out that they've had sex. I operate on the base assumption that everyone around me is constantly having sex without my knowledge or consent. Mm-hmm. But like for instance, I'll make a friend
all the time. People are actually
I'll make a friend and she'll be like, you know, a great friend for a while. Then out of nowhere, here comes Mr. Boyfriend. Hey, here's Mr. Boyfriend. You know, I never considered how this would affect our friendship, but you know, I just went out and got a boyfriend. And then she'll just start. You know, it's not even a conscious thing necessarily. Yeah. It's kind of genetically programmed. That once you have a boyfriend, you know, you'll really show him off and be like, you know, here, hug up next to me, you know, let's kiss, let's smooch, all of this.
Yeah, you may not be surprised.
I noticed that.
Yeah, you may not be surprised to hear that a lot of friendships have that issue, even with entirely, you know, sexual, allosexual people. I do.
I'm sure they do, but
because
I'm sure it's a lot easier when one can be emotionally validated and supported by a girlfriend or whatever on their own. You know, aside from the friendship, and the friendship isn't like the central tenet of one's existence. I think it would be a lot easier.
I have an idea. I have a thought. Yeah. What if, because I think this is sort of how you view sex a little bit. So what if like vampires were real, and you could like be friends with one, and they could go out in the daylight. But the thing is, they need to feed on blood. Like no matter, like at some point they need to do it. It is not good. It's bad. You know, we don't like it. It's not a good thing. But like some people just have that like compulsion and need. Would you be able to be friends with somebody like that?
The human species to the level of an animal, and I don't believe that the human species. I believe that the human species is technically an animal, but I believe that we have the remarkable capacity of sentience and free will and decision making. And we can make decisions like, hey, you know, this girl's on heroin. Hey, this girl's drunk. Hey, this girl's not in the position to have sex right now, so there just won't be any sex. Yeah. I think that people can make rational decisions about when is not the correct time to have sex, if and when at all sex does occur. And I just think it's very reductive to reduce the human consciousness and especially like autonomy and free will down to that level. I am currently writing about vampires, and I think historically vampires have been described as far too attractive and far too given into sex. I mean, they're dead. Yeah. So in my mythology, all my vampires are asexual because.
Yeah, I had an idea of a fictional vampire thing. We could talk about some other time, maybe. But actually, which brings me up to what I was going to say was, you seem to be whenever you talk about these hypothetical friends of yours, they always seem to be female. What about like right. do you have male friends who are also like some like are you able to be friends with somebody who's a guy who could be potentially a really close friends of yours who wants to have sex and stuff, but they just aren't able to get a girlfriend and just can't ever have sex, you know, they just by happenstance.
That doesn't really interest me. See, guys, I view them as my adversaries because if they are romantically or sexually interested in girls,
I'm listening.
Yeah, adversaries, exactly. Opponents in a
But you're not trying to have sex though. But go on, continue.
We're not trying to have sex, but I'm not trying to have sex with them, but they are my competitors because they're trying to be romantically involved with the same girls that I'm trying to be platonically involved.
Okay.
With. So I don't think I have too much in common with them. And they'll only talk about how they can't get a girlfriend or heartbreak or all this stuff that I can't relate to at all. Whereas girls will talk about like how their boyfriends are jerks, you know, how their boyfriends dump them or whatever, which is far more relatable to me because I know that I would never do that because I'm nobody's boyfriend. So.
Yeah. But I don't know. I feel like you would be related to the. Well, you're not looking. Well, but you're no. I feel like you would relate to the guys who can't get girlfriends because while you're not looking for a girlfriend, you're looking for a partner who is a platonic female life partner of yours, and you know they are looking for the same thing.
Not even necessarily a life partner, maybe a couple years. And I'd never refer to them as a partner because like I've been around people who are like, you know, girls who are like lesbians and are very cool and know absolutely that I'm not sexually or romantically attracted to them. They're not to me. And if I called them a partner or something, they would be extremely offended by that because that term denies one agency and it just kind of reduces one to one's relationship to another person. I'm looking for a very driven, sovereign individual who knows exactly what she wants out of life and you know, doesn't take any shortcuts and puts in all the work and really, you know, has a great deal of gusto to her. But no, I don't think I would be able to relate all that much.
Do you have a lot of friends who are lesbians? Because that might actually be good.
There are a lot of lesbians, and I don't nearly mind enough when they're, you know, some lesbian like, oh, here's my girlfriend who's a lesbian. But you know, as much as like with the guys, because the guys just generally tend to be complete jerks out here. Denver is a very isolated environment, and I imagine all the guys are extremely lonely. And I just can't really relate to the guy type drive to dominate or conquer or like that, which seems to be pretty much the prevalent. That sounds
surprising, considering you just referred to every male person on Earth as your adversary. So that is kind of funny that you would say something like that.
Well, not the gay ones, not the gay ones,
not the gay ones, of course.
Yeah, I mean all the straight guys who have girlfriends out here.
Yeah.
So, as I understand it, your position is that the problem is not necessarily the existence of sex, and obviously all the psychological problems that come from sexual tension and the forfeiture of free will and rational thought. But you think the problem is that people aren't receptive enough to polyamory. So would you care to kind of...
Well, we could go into my side of the spectrum, and that's a totally different conversation. We could go all into that, but I came here to get yours. But if you want to do that, that's fine. Because my goal, I want to get along with as many people as possible. I want to have as many positive acquaintances and friends with as many people as possible. Yeah.
I see.
So I've been thinking, like, I feel like if we, you know, continued, like, it would be fun to be friends, but I wouldn't be able to be this person for you because, yeah, I'm a sexual person. However, I haven't had sex in a very long time. It's also I wanted to mention I'm an addict, so I had an opioid addiction, and there was an interesting time I remember because what opioids do is they lower your sex drive, and there was an actual time when I felt very, very close to asexual, and I do agree that it was like, wow, it does make it a lot easier to focus on goals that aren't related to interpersonal relationships. So I totally do understand and kind of envy that a little bit in your experience.
I mean,
but I do also
I wouldn't say it's necessary. I wouldn't say it's necessarily worth getting hooked on opioids.
No, it's absolutely not. No, but it provided a unique insight that I wish that I could provide to you. Like, it would be really nice for you to understand sexual attraction and romantic compulsion, just so then you could turn it off and then be like, okay, now I have a better understanding of how other people feel.
Right, but I never can because it's a sexual orientation, and those are fixed from birth.
Those are,
and I've never experienced
for most
anything
people, anyway,
remotely approaching a sexual impulse or thought. So.
So what if you were friends with a girl and a guy who were dating, or a girl and a girl who were both dating and stuff like that, and they just... So wait, so you don't like being excluded during the sex time, right? You guys want to like hang out 24/7 and you just don't want there to be that 5, 10, 20, half an hour, hour-long time where sex happens.
Oh, right? It's not just 5, 20, half an hour. It's like every single day, and then I might get to see my friend like once every 3 months or something, which I don't think is remotely conducive to a healthy friendship. Yeah. I'd want to see my friend as much as she sees her boyfriend, but she sees her boyfriend so often that it like literally blocks out the entire rest of the world to her, and I don't think that's very cool.
What happened? I mean, but a lot of times people, I mean, but what if you make friends with the boyfriend because he doesn't see you as a threat, because obviously you're not going to try to bang his girlfriend, and she's not going to try to...
Right, but he does see me as a threat because I do want to spend as much time alone with his girlfriend as he wants to spend alone with her, and he will always take precedence over me. The problem is that it's uneven. It's unequal. As I said, if I had an asexual friend who was a girl, and she had an asexual friend who was a guy, and none of us were having sex with any of us at any point in time, and we were all just a complete triad of pals, that'd be fine. Yeah. Just so long as I knew that nobody was romantic or sexual with anyone, and it was all just for fun. But if anyone felt any semblance of romantic or sexual attraction, that kind of throws the whole cookies out with the bathwater there, because the dynamic has shifted. And the problem with sexual and romantic relationships that doesn't apply to platonic ones is that there is a transactional power dynamic at play.
There can be. There isn't always, but yes.
There is. See, people want to discard gender roles, but the source of gender roles is and always will be sex. Because if you can seduce someone with feminine traits, or you can seduce someone with masculine traits, then you are putting yourselves above them. You are destroying equality. You are destroying an equal footing that you're on in favor of a power dynamic where you can manipulate and use someone to your own will. And that's something I would never want to do with any of my friends, because I feel sex is not...
it can be that, but most of the time it's just, oh, I think this person's attractive, I want them to find me attractive too. It's not like, oh, I want to use my... It's not like... I mean, obviously that has happened where spies, especially, female spies, would, like, honeypot a guy to get them to, say some information. But most of the time it's just, oh, I think this person's attractive, let me talk to them and let's see where this goes. Or not even that. I mean, most of the time it's the way that is with like, things like apps and stuff like that. But in genuine, real life, you meet people, you become friends, you get to know them, and then sometimes a relationship can develop afterwards. It's not always like it's not always used to extract like some kind of value from the other person. It's often just a mutual desire sometimes. It's just like
mainly just used to extract sex. And if someone in the relationship doesn't want to have sex anymore, then the entire relationship just kind of ends, because the other person does want sex very much.
Yeah, I don't think that an asexual and an allosexual could date, because there's actually a great show, I forget what it's called, but it's this show about these high schoolers in Australia or something like that, and they it's kind of like Skins, if you ever seen that, but basically it's about this like high school, but there is this one part where these two kids that are gay. One is a more femme, like almost trans, but a guy, and then there's like a more like kind of like an inner city guy, and they get together. But the inner city, the sort of like queer, like femme guy is very hypersexual, and the inner city guy is asexual, and they like each other, but like they can't make their relationship work because the guy is asexual, and I predicted it. I knew it immediately. I was like that guy. Their relationship's not going to work because it doesn't. They can't do.
In my case, the way I see it is, I would enjoy feeling love, platonic love. But if love cannot exist independently of sex, then love does not exist.
I totally
love
think
is only a byproduct of the sexual process. And people cannot just get along with each other regardless of whether or not they're having sex, then love doesn't exist. And if someone actually loved me, he could absolutely sacrifice sex and just spend a lot of time with me,
Yeah, I absolutely...
but as it stands, all I ever see are transactional sexual relationships where people treat each other like piggy banks that they can deposit and withdraw sex from. And I don't think that's the type of relationship I'd ever want to engage in. It doesn't sound like much fun.
I feel like I agree, because I don't feel like that. I think incels view sex as transactional, as like something owed to them, but I think general, normal, healthy relationships just view it as part of their thing. I forgot what I was going to say. I was going to say something else too, though, but yeah, it's not like a piggy bank of, oh, let's have sex this and that time. I mean, eventually it can be that. Oh yeah, love does not equal sex. I totally, yeah, no, absolutely. I think I believe. I mean, there's 5 types of love in my opinion. There's romantic, which is the one most people think of immediately, and then there is platonic, which is I consider to be between friends and family, and then there's what's known as tribal love, which is when you go on like sports teams. Like if you meet somebody on the street and you don't know anything about them, but you see their shirt and they have a band or a sports team that you like, you're like, I know that thing. That would be like a tribal kind of connection and love. And then there's self-love, which is, understanding and loving yourself and being open and honest with yourself and understanding and completely accepting yourself. And then there's what I would call universal love, which is a more spiritual kind of, like a higher level kind of just love with existence. So yeah, I would totally agree that no, I do not think that sex and love are absolutely linked at all. In fact, and as a like I said, a non-monogamous person, I think true love, what better way to test true love between sexual people if they are together and can have sex with anyone else at any time, but they still choose to stick around each other. Like, clearly I feel like that's a much stronger relationship than one that's built entirely on we are only allowed to have sex with each other and no one else. I find
so you believe that jealousy can be conquered, but sexual attraction cannot.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely think jealousy can be conquered, but I mean, sexual attraction. Like, do you think that
sexual
you could become attracted to people?
This is what's interesting is I am very much capable of experiencing jealousy. It's one of the few things that does make me feel human on a routine basis. Is when I see one of my friends having sex or being around their boyfriend, and I do feel jealous,
and that makes me human. Feeling, of course, but I think it can be overcome.
Now, the thing is, I think jealousy and sex are roughly comparable. They are both deeply primal human emotions, and they both, in a certain way, negate the process of rational thought. There is no actual reason why I should care about my friend having sex with her boyfriend, but it does just kind of bother me. Yeah. I think if people could overcome jealousy, I think the world would be a much more peaceful, harmonious place.
I certainly do.
But I'm not sure.
But you also seem to think that people can be overcome of their sexual attraction. Do you think that you could be taught? Do you think? But does that mean? Do you think that you could be taught sexuality? Then, do you think you could be convinced to find somebody sexually attractive? Because if you couldn't, then the other way around doesn't work. But you also,
if I've transcended sexual attraction, if one can overcome that, then one can overcome jealousy. I think that.
But you haven't overcome sexual attraction. You just don't have it. You were just born without it. You didn't overcome anything. You were born.
That's true. It's not a challenge for me. It might be a challenge for someone else. If someone can overcome jealousy, I think someone can overcome sexual attraction because they are roughly comparable behaviors. And
but then you agree that you could overcome jealousy. Then you're
yes. That. But if I can put in the work and the time and the effort to overcome my feelings of jealousy, I'd like someone to come along for the ride and overcome their feelings of sexual attraction. Because if I'm willing to put in the work, I don't think it's exactly fair that I'm the only one who should be expected to put in the work. I think everyone else can too, or at least like one person. One person can say, "Hey, Nick, I get that you're jealous around my boyfriend. Jealousy isn't good. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop having sex with my boyfriend and be a much better friend and support you in your quest to overcome jealousy." and I'll also be overcoming a negative character trait that ruins all the relationships I have besides my sexual
How would
one.
her giving in to your desires help you overcome jealousy at the expense of her boyfriend? How does that help you overcome jealousy? If anything, that just makes the boyfriend more jealous. And that gives you what you want.
He wouldn't be her boyfriend anymore, so I could be a lot more receptive to him and maybe see something of myself in him or bond on some level. Yeah. I wouldn't be jealous of him anymore. I'd be like, hey, you're a cool guy. You're not having sex with my friend anymore. Awesome, bro.
I mean...
But until that happens, I wouldn't be so jealous.
I would
Overall, I think if even one person was capable of overcoming their sexual impulses, I could probably overcome my jealousy for literally everyone because my faith in humanity would be kind of restored after that. And I'd be convinced that free will and autonomy do in fact exist, and people can make rational decisions that improve their life.
There are celibate people that are voluntarily celibate.
There are.
It's
rare to come across.
But that exists. That already exists.
Yeah.
So doesn't that restore your faith? It's already there. Your wish is granted.
I'd like to know one. I'd like to know one personally who does not have sex of their own volition. I think
you could probably find that on the internet.
And it's a very admirable existence. No, I mean in Denver. I'd like to see that the Denver demographic is changing from a climate of unsophisticated apes who just think that they can go out and have sex with any girl they want to like a much more civilized collection
that you
of guys
can overcome sexual attraction, but you understand that you can't change someone's sexual orientation?
Well, the same way that someone can go from being a virgin who's never had sex to a sexual being, I think someone can go the opposite route. Someone can go from a complete nymphomaniac and through a process
of just like... But they can still find
love,
people
attention.
Attractive, though.
I think after the process that I have in mind, they wouldn't find anyone attractive sexually. They'd learn to appreciate people as people instead of just constantly wanting to have sex.
So, but if we reversed your method, though, should it be effective, then we could engineer you into becoming a sexual being.
Well, no, because in my case, it's a sexual orientation. In terms of like,
how is it not?
Like I say,
how is it not when it's
not
the other way around?
Say a celibate person. Say like a Buddhist monk who is slowly guided into being a full-on sex fiend. You can also guide a sex fiend into becoming a Buddhist monk. There's no reason why you can't.
But both will still look at a sexually attractive figure and find it sexually attractive.
Generally, with a celibate lifestyle like being a Buddhist monk, you're not really supposed to do that. Same with being a Catholic
you're supposed to. You can't. Yeah. No, I'm very familiar with Buddhism. I love Buddhism. I'm very inspired by Buddhist understanding, which is how it's helped me overcome a lot of my flaws, and continue to work on them. But as someone who practices those types of things, like. You control your actions. You accept that you find that person attractive, and then you just let it go. You don't think immorality. You're just like, oh yeah, that's a nice ass, and then you just let it go, and then it goes. But you don't say it out loud. You just see it, and then move on with your life, and as if you just looked at a bird fly in the sky.
Right. I never think any of that, which is why, again, I wouldn't even prefer to have to go through this whole rigmarole where I have to have one of my friends give up their sexual attraction, but there are no asexuals around, and it's so completely alienating that I might actually be interested in trying to maybe improve someone's life. I think someone's life could be quite improved if they stopped having a boyfriend.
I really want to improve your life and help you find an asexual person to be friends with, because I'm so sad that you don't have one. That really hurts me.
It's not that sad. At a certain point, you just stop caring. You become apathetic.
I know, and that's what's sad about it. It's like you've given up, and I don't blame you for doing so.
You can't feel sexually about. I don't feel sexually or romantically towards anyone.
Exactly, and there are other people out
really
there in
friends.
Denver who I would bet money that there is at least one other person
sure.
who is out there.
The thing is,
I want you to find them.
there's such a sex-positive, polyamorous sort of atmosphere around here that all the asexuals are deeply, deeply in the closet, and there's a deep stigma attached to the concept of being unable to experience romantic or sexual attraction. So
but
everyone who could potentially make a really great friend.
Yeah. You understand that even if there are some bullies in the sex-positive community, the point of sex positivity includes and encourages asexuality as well, right?
It really does not. It only encourages, like your take, polyamory. Everyone loves being polyamorous around here.
I feel like it...
And their relationships go to hell after about half a year, because they do experience jealousy, and they don't work on conquering their jealousy before they launch into these polyamorous relationships, which is very important.
I think that's like
they're not
people using feminism, like men using feminism, like the ideas of feminism to enhance patriarchy, where they encourage the bits of feminism where women can dress however they like in such a way that it also benefits the men. I think that the sex positive community has doing that to you, because true, if you look up, like, sex positivity is very much pro, if you don't want it, you don't have to have it. Asexual, A-okay. That is good. Everybody should be able to have the sex or not sex that they want, with or without anyone else who consents. So the people who are assholes are assholes, and there will always be assholes. But the concept is not anti-asexual, even though unfortunately in your experience it seems to feel that way.
The issue sort of is that whenever I say I'm asexual, people assume by default that I am sex repulsed. So at that point, there is literally no further discussion of even the possibility, which again, I would very much be.
You could subvert that, though.
I think I could I don't know what the effect would be on my psyche. It could very much drive me completely insane, or it could lead to me becoming a more mature, well-rounded person, or it could have no effect whatsoever, and I would go on completely as before.
What do you mean by
either way?
What do you mean by it in that sentence, in that statement?
Sex, if I had sex.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure how it would affect my psyche. I have no way of knowing.
I don't think it would really affect you very much at all. I think you would kind of get over it pretty fast. I think you would. And
that's kind of the issue. Is if I was going to have sex or anything, I'd expect it to impact me for a great deal, because that's kind of the point of any new experience.
Yeah.
And I would not want cheap, meaningless sex. And like you say, sort of the issue is that in my case, I can't have too many friends. I've realized at a certain point that I have too many friends. I have like 10,000 friends, and
well, you're quite popular.
The potency of each is the potency of each is weakened by the level of friendship. Yeah, it becomes diluted, like adding food coloring.
Well, there's only Dunbar's 150 relationships you can really maintain as a human being.
Right, and I try and maintain 10,000, and that simply isn't mentally healthy. So I think at this point...
Well, there you go. I mean, you understand that that's just wrong. Yeah, at least you know.
One consistent platonic female friend who never has sex with anyone else, and I never have sex with anyone else, and we're just best pals all the time. That could be a really grounding force in my life, like a really great anchor. And if she could just, express emotional support and be a nice person, and I could do the same for her, and together, then I think we could both help each other out a great deal mentally. But again, it's a paradox in that asexuals are all stigmatized in the closet, and nobody wants to admit that they are one. So yeah, I think the issue is that I don't think polyamory is a universally applicable solution to every scenario.
I wouldn't say so either. I would 100% agree with you, because there are so many people who can't handle it. It's definitely a big thing.
I'd say I'm polyplatonic, and I can probably handle it a lot better than anyone who can experience, I can handle it a lot better than anyone who can experience romantic attraction. I can't imagine what it would be like to know 10,000 people and be romantically attracted to a lot of them. that must like really wreak havoc on the psyche. And I understand why people don't do.
It's not some. It's kind of it's an unconscious process. It's like you go through the day as a sexual person. You go through the day and you just see other people and you find them either like you don't really think about it. Like most of the time, it's just
right.
not. It's not really. It doesn't really go into it. You don't. Yeah. Most people, even especially again, sexual people, don't take. They don't look around. I mean, there are definitely some pigs out there who are like, yes, yes, no, yes, no. But most people are just like, oh, you know, they just treat people like people. You know, it's not really a.
Well, that's fascinating because in my case, I am consistently conscious of every single relationship I try to engage or initiate. I keep detailed statistics in my head at all times of everyone, their factors, their attributes.
I think that
various
may be
things
the
like
issue.
that.
I think that may be part of the problem. I think you might be. You just. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it, but it might just be you're putting a lot of mental energy into this, and I think it might not be serving you.
Well, yes.
Perspective, yeah.
It's a large factor of my life, and I can't treat it with anything remotely approaching like a casual attitude because I've seen firsthand the psychological damage it can wreak on my head and so many other people's heads. I've been around so many other people with like deep sexual trauma and deep romantic trauma, and so you know I do take it very seriously, and so I have to remain conscious of the types of things I'm saying and how other people perceive me and how the relationship goes at every single point that I'm around them.
What about like?
And I think that's very important.
Are you a part of any online ace communities?
No, I gave that up a good long time ago.
It didn't work?
I haven't found the internet as conducive to communication for me at all. The most effective and meaningful experience for me, and the only time I've even been able to have a slight degree of like emotional output, is when I'm just alone with a girl and I can cry to her or tell her. You know, and tell her she'll be okay, tell her I'll be okay, just be just have a total breakdown in front of a girl. It's great. It's much better than sex and a lot more meaningful.
Yeah.
Do you think I think crying is actually...
Do you think that it would serve you to try to foster more of those relationships with girls that are platonic and stuff and just wanting to be friends and stuff and just kind of... I know that the big problem is when they get a boyfriend and with women it's a lot easier for them to go from one relationship to another than with men, which is also why I think that perhaps maybe you should start... Again, you didn't ask for my advice, but I'm just saying my opinion is maybe it would be easier to start looking for men as well, just to become, just to be platonic friends with, to do that in until you are able to find this magical, completely asexual woman to be your other person that is you play checkers with and cry and spend almost 100% of the time together and never once does sex come up.
I've never really experienced. The thing is, I've never experienced that sort of time with the girl who's in a committed romantic relationship because they completely ignore me and block me out. In fact, they're extremely hesitant to allow me to be emotional or honest or vulnerable in front of them.
Why is that? Because I have a friend who has been a friend of mine for a very long time. We're not related, but we're basically brother and sister. I don't find her like we will never date, and she's had plenty of boyfriends, and we've had a very strong relationship throughout all that time.
I suppose it's because on a certain level they find me and all my attributes repulsive, and that's fine. If they'd rather spend time with their boyfriend, then they can. But they really are missing out on the sort of platonic experiences that I've had with girls who don't have boyfriends and just want someone to talk to and be around.
How do you feel about yourself, as if you had a clone of yourself that you could be friends with and hang out with? How do you think
that would be
go?
fine? But that would be fine. But currently, cloning technology is legal. But yeah, that I've thought about that oftentimes because I am literally the only person that I understand on any kind of absolute or complete level.
If I had clones, dude, we would be best buds, man. It would be so much easier. Part of the
problem is that part of the problem is that like you said, the deal with someone who has a boyfriend, and I can't. They put a certain level of like a shield or a wall up, a protective barrier, and I understand why they do that, of course, because they assume on a fundamental innate level that I want to have sex with them, even if I absolutely don't.
That just takes time, and the more you get to know a person, they'll understand that.
But I only get to know people for about 3 months on average before they leave or move away, because Denver is an extremely neurotic place that tends to foster all sorts of neuroses, and nobody wants to stay here.
Do you live on your own, or you live with your family?
With my family, but it doesn't really matter because I want to meet people my own age who, think similarly to me, be part of something. Denver doesn't foster a kind of.
Tell me again.
It doesn't foster the kind of thing that I imagine goes on in any other cities.
Okay, that's true. Yeah,
everyone is constantly moving, leaving in and out.
Yeah. Tell me more about your. Oh, so it's very transient. Not a lot of people spend a lot of time there. That's interesting.
Yes, it's very transient.
Tell me again about your experience with the asexual support group, where it was just a bunch of trans people who were not asexual. How did that go?
Right. They were like someone came in and was like, my marriage is getting stale. I've been married for 10 years, and I.
Well, that doesn't mean that they're not asexual, though. They could be romantic. Continue.
They could be, but they had sex.
Okay.
So I would say, did you enjoy it? Did you like sex? Did you find anything in it? Because obviously, if they do, probably nice. It's probably just an old marriage, and I was willing to be realistic about that.
Yeah.
Nobody else in the group was asexual.
Wow, that's so weird. Do you believe there can be a spectrum of asexuality? Like you're at the opposite, like the complete end of it. You have zero, but do you think that there's people that can be very asexual but open to it sometimes?
No, generally not. I think if you've never had a sexual thought or a romantic thought, then you're asexual or aromantic, and if you do, then you're allosexual, and that's fine. But
okay.
I think particularly I am the only asexual around who legitimately has never had sex, nor wanted sex, nor cares about it at all, and is willing to be completely open and honest about that fact, thereby alienating everyone around me on a consistent basis. But no, there are no...
In the city of Denver.
And keep in mind, I imagine that the Denver asexual support group is probably a lot smaller than, like, a coastal one, but... there's definitely not too many. But I think the actual asexuals are probably at home in the closet.
Yeah, it makes sense because you guys, it's easy to be alone with yourself.
It's entirely paradoxic. I'm the only open one.
How have you ever tried an online one? I know those aren't usually very fun, but like an online asexual support group?
Because
you want people in Denver, right?
Because people on there are either not in Denver or it's like I don't even think the ones who are in the closet necessarily even try those ones. I think they just are in consistent denial about their lack of interest in sex. I think I'm not sure if it's more a thing with girls or more with guys where they'll be like, I don't want to admit that I'm asexual. I think from everything I've seen, girls are more willing to be honest about it because sex is a hassle for them anyway, so they may as well just be like, I don't have sex. But it's very rare to see a guy be honest about it because it's seen as like a big thing.
Yeah, it's patriarchy.
And losing. Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, no, I understand.
So they don't like it too much, and I think it's more common to be an asexual girl. But I'm sure as with any other sexual orientation, it's about 50-50.
Yeah, I imagine there's probably more, but like you said, they just don't identify themselves very much. I imagine the percentage of asexual people out in the whole world are higher than than what it says.
Because, yeah, they don't.
I'm really glad that you have a YouTube channel because that's how we met. I think that, have you considered, and do you do this to perhaps foster a community of asexual people? Because there are other YouTube channels that are actually quite popular.
I only recently started posting about asexuality. I certainly will more in the future.
Mm-hmm.
It's only one of a handful of subjects I find interesting. Really, my video, The Asexual Double Standard, is probably the lengthiest one I'm ever going to make on the subject. It pretty much goes through all of the ace experience. But I do believe that asexual visibility, representation, and the like is a very important cause that I'm very much I'm willing to contribute to. And yeah, I got kicked out of this asexual support group because I wanted to start an asexual band. And they said I was being too pushy, but you know, there's trans bands, there's all gay bands, there's all lesbian bands, all around.
It's been a bad time.
And I see no reason why there can't be an asexual band where they talk specifically about not wanting to have sex.
I think
the problem is that it's not very marketable.
Oh well, neither is most.
There aren't enough asexuals locally. There aren't enough asexuals locally to join or care about it. But other than that, like I say, in my novels, stories, I try and incorporate asexual themes every so often. I'm pretty sure my new vampire book, which comes out next year, will be the first ever depiction of vampires as completely passionless asexual creatures. For whatever reason, they're always depicted as hot, which I don't understand because, like, they're dead and cold. So I think an asexual depiction is a much more accurate type portrayal of
how do you use the blood-sucking thing? Like
they don't feel anything when they do it. It's not equivalent to sex. They're just hungry.
You don't use it
the
as
same
a
way that I
metaphor
consume food.
for something?
No, the same way that I consume food.
Okay.
Yeah, they technically, if I recall, the vampires in Anne Rice's mythos are technically asexual because they don't have sex, but they're the blood drinking as a metaphor for sex. Whereas in mine, the vampires are cold, dead, empty husks without the inability to love.
Yeah.
And it's pretty entertaining. It gets into some pretty interesting.
How
so yeah, I
long
write
is
about
it?
asexuality.
How long will it be?
It'll probably top out at around 80,000 words. My previous novel is about 76,000, so I'm going to try and stretch to 80,000. Yes, and you can. I should say to all the viewers out there, you can get a free catalog of all my titles by writing to Nicholas Cicada, 1424 Columbine Street, number 1, Denver, Colorado 80206. Nicholas on YouTube. Not on Instagram,
on
not
live.
TikTok, but I am on YouTube.
It won't be a thing, but on the video, I'll make sure to put this out in text, and I'll have a link in the description. And
yeah, sure. Yeah, my address and everything, totally public. That's where people write to get the free Nicholas Comics catalog. So yeah,
cool.
that's yeah, my debut novel, Frames of Reference, is out now. It has some asexual themes to it.
Yeah.
I write about asexuality. I film about it. I make songs about it. I do all that because I think it is important to increase asexual visibility. For whatever reason, this might not even be the case in any other city, but in Denver there is a serious lack of asexual visibility and representation, and I think that's
a shame. Is there a city that's better, do you think, that might be?
I have no idea. I haven't been to any other cities particularly, but
maybe we should look it up.
I do think that Denver, just in particular, probably does a terrible job of it. And from everything I've heard from all my pals, they say that the guys around here are very insufferable and really can't stop. So, yeah, I hope that changes eventually. It's a very annoying type environment to be around, and it's just consistently neurotic.
I'm looking
but yeah, I'd say partially the main issue is that you know, everyone talks about all these phenomena like body dysmorphia, confusion, questioning one's orientation, everything. I know exactly what I want and exactly what I'm after in life, and exactly who I am and how I feel. But while everyone is very supportive, I have yet to find someone who I feel completely like shares my lived experience and knows exactly what I'm talking about. And yeah, so if there's any asexual listeners out there, please, by all means, just do something fun. Cool.
Yeah.
If you're in the Denver area, I'm open for a day of fun.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. Any asexuals out there in Denver who see this, please let our friend know so you guys can maybe hang out. I just looked it up. It's hard there. Yeah, I didn't see anything in my 5 seconds.
There's no statistics, right? It's very poor. It's very poorly researched. That's what I find too. Is asexuality is like very poorly researched, so I kind of have to figure it out all on my own. I do a decent job of it.
I do hope that you can develop a community. What do you think of the other asexual YouTubers and stuff? Have you seen them?
I don't watch too much asexual type content. I like making it. Yeah, I probably will. There. I'm sure I'd find that interesting.
And I think they have Discord servers.
Every so often, I go on a certain certain video topic, and I just stay on that a while. But I will certainly. I am certainly interested in the.
There's one that's a British guy, and then there's another one that's like 2 or 3 people who are in like an.
Oh yeah, him. I've seen his video about. Yeah, I've seen all of that.
What do you think?
I would say that it's okay. It's decently informative. I would say specifically that I like producing stuff from the perspective of a Denverite specifically, because Denver is a very unique type environment. I'm sure over in Britain or any highly populated area there's more asexuals. I'm sure in any highly populated area there's more asexuals. But I find the perspective from Denver specifically absolutely fascinating and very interesting.
I really hope you find what you're looking for, and I hope you don't take things so seriously when you find friends that do have sex sometimes. Don't take it personally. It's nothing you did.
Well, I'm not possessed of the kind of hormonal tempest that someone who is capable of experiencing romantic attraction would be. I just kind of let them go and then just say, have a great time, but you've ruined our friendship. But that's okay. Enjoy having sex.
What about when they break up with their boyfriend and they say, "Hey, what's up? Are you willing to pick up the friendship again?" Or do you feel?
Yeah, I hope eventually. Eventually some of them do that. That could be pretty cool if they start recognizing that these guys really only value them for their body, and that's kind of not a way to form a relationship on top of. But I would say that yes, I'm open to that.
What if they were to get married to this person, but then reach out to you still and be like, "Hey, so I've been together with my boyfriend or husband or whatever for a while, and we want to all be friends and hang out, and just the 3 of us hang out a lot." How would you do that?
I consider marriage to be potentially the most foreign and alienating process it's possible.
Well, yeah, you wouldn't be part of the marriage. Like, they're just married, and they're invited.
No, I mean the fact that they're even in the marriage would mean that they're like Freemasons or something, and they're part of this occult secret society that I have nothing to do with. So I'd have a very difficult time.
I think you're taking it too seriously. I think that's the problem. I think you're taking it just a bit too seriously.
The tossing of the flower.
So I don't blame you. You are very.
In Freudian terms, a wedding is a symbolic orgy. That's what Freud thought, and I kind of
Freud is crazy, dude. Freud's been disproven on everything.
Well, I prefer Jung, but I do think that's the. So
I do understand that the concept of marriage, I think, is a little antiquated, though, and also it's a property relationship. It literally is a transaction, so it's based in those kind of things. However, it's evolved. I don't mind expressions of love, like what are nice when people do renewals of vows. That it's like they get married all over again. They have a whole other wedding just to reaffirm how much they love each other, and I think those things are nice. Gosh, a few other questions. I was gonna get going. Do you still have time?
Yeah, I got time.
Cool. Yeah, because I actually just remembered that I wanted to ask, what is it like? What's it like you know, when basically every song, ad, media, every entertainment and art that exists is like being based around something that you just can't relate to. How must that be like?
See, that's interesting because
I really want to know.
I don't believe that every piece of art is necessarily meant to
not every single one, but the vast majority
to sex or romance. So what I do specifically is you know, creating asexual music. It's very interesting because I'm up against so many decades of really cheesy pop and love songs they're all mushy. So I find that it's a very I make music.
What would you do?
I find that it's
what would you do if you found out that two people had sex to one of your songs? Sorry if that's
I don't know why they would.
Yeah,
I don't know why they would, but if they did, that'd be. I guess my first choice would be to question their rationale.
Yeah,
to have sex to a song that is specifically about not having sex. It would be interesting. I would be interested to know.
Dude, I would be the one to. I would do that. I'll let you.
But I enjoy providing a subversive alternative for people who aren't into romance or sex. I think I'm definitely filling a niche in an untapped market, even if
definitely.
And I think in time, say 30, 40 years, my songs will be looked back on fondly. But I'm sure by that point, more people will come out of the closet. Yeah. And you know, they'll see me as a general trendsetter who was capable of making asexual music in a time when that really wasn't a thing, and there was still so much commercialized pop songs and stuff about having sex and falling in love.
Do you enjoy media and TV shows and stuff that have, like, you know, that are like dramas and romance and stuff, even if it doesn't appeal to you?
No, I don't prefer. I don't prefer romantic stuff. I don't prefer romantic comedies. I don't really prefer dramas. I prefer science fiction and horror because I believe those two genres have a lot of potential for the imagination.
Yeah.
And I believe that it is the duty of any serious sci-fi or horror author to present alternative possibilities, new ideas, especially in science fiction. Have an alien species that's non-binary, have an alien species that's asexual, just to expand one's perspective.
Have you ever seen The Expanse or For All Mankind? Those are great.
No,
I
haven't seen The Expanse or For All Mankind.
I highly recommend them. They are really
I would say the worst representation of sexuality I've seen in science fiction has been Robert A. Heinlein, particularly Stranger in a Strange Land, where he affirms that sex is a universal constant. Yeah. He says every invention that humanity has ever come up with is specifically for the purpose of reproduction. Look through the patent system for the submissions of eunuchs. I think that I think it's not offensive, but I think that to call oneself a sci-fi author and to be incapable of imagining a potential alien society without the process of sex just speaks to a general closed-mindedness.
Literally, like an asexual reproductive species that becomes intelligent.
Yeah, right.
Like a hive mind.
Yeah. In terms of, I'd say the best portrayal of sexual dynamics. The best portrayal of sexual dynamics in science fiction would probably actually be Star Trek. I like a lot of the Star Trek has an interesting.
Which ones?
Well, all of them. I suppose everyone before Enterprise. I don't like everything past Enterprise, but Voyager, Deep Space Nine, the original in particular. I think
there is sex.
I think just the concept of
with Kirk,
there's sex in all of them, but but then again, the thing is, a lot of people point to Kirk as kind of an outdated type character who has too much sex.
Antiquated.
But the great thing about the writing is that Spock is there to provide a welcome contrast.
Spock is great.
Right.
For that.
Right, an absolute contrast. So I would say that's an example of good writing where you acknowledge that different characters can have different levels of interest in something.
What about the relationship between Kirk and Spock? They have a very, very close platonic relationship, but Kirk obviously has sex on the side. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's an example of a platonic. That's an example of a platonic relationship,
Mm-hmm. They're
and
like brothers,
well,
basically.
that's different. Obviously, yeah, that's
Yeah,
different because obviously Spock and Kirk are the same gender. I'd say with
that's
intergender
true.
platonic friendships, the dynamic is quite different. I would say a better example, a much better example from Star Trek specifically, would be Will Riker and Deanna Troi from The Next Generation.
Mm.
There's an episode specifically where Deanna Troi is about to get married, and Riker doesn't really like that because he and her have some past issues. But they're just friends at that point, and he
Mm-hmm.
says, you know, she can get married or whatever. I don't really care, but so long as it makes her happy. I think that's an example of a great deal of maturity, and
Yeah,
I think it's important that maturity in that sense is portrayed in science fiction.
that's
But I
the
do
main
think that
thing.
science fiction and horror, out of any two genres, are much better at portraying imaginative dynamics and interesting possibilities than dramas or romance or anything like that. So no, I don't typically watch romantic media.
I imagine you haven't seen the movie The Substance, right?
No, I haven't seen
No,
it. I know it's new, but I haven't
I
seen it.
wonder what you would think about it because obviously it's a. Do you know anything about it?
No,
Well,
is it like The Stuff, the Larry Cohen film?
It's kind of like it's actually a body horror film where this aging like starlet gets a substance that makes like a clone of her out of her body that's like a younger version of herself and stuff, and it like she like
Interesting.
steals her future body's life force to keep the past life alive and stuff like that. It's a very
Mhm.
pro like sexual movie, but it's also about things like aging and addiction and stuff like that. And it's
Yeah, so long as something has themes beyond just sex is great, it's a universal positive.
mhm.
I think to assert anything as a universally good thing or a universally positive thing is naive
Yeah.
and speaks to a certain
Except for
immaturity.
fascism being
And
a universal negative, I will stand by that.
here in Denver,
Hmm.
the general consensus seems to be that the only qualifier of maturity is that you have sex and do drugs. But
That
I
sounds
think I'm
rather
actually
immature,
far more
in my
mature.
opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's anything inherently mature about having sex, and I think in
No.
many ways it is indicative of a deep-seated immaturity
Mhm.
to just consistently have sex and to never think about why you're having sex or who you're having sex with or if you even
Yeah,
particularly
because
like
what
it.
makes when relationships
um,
good is the times around the sex. It's the time, because obviously
Right.
any two people can have sex, but like, relationships are good because you enjoy each other's company. And, so
That might very well be true. The fun part might be the stuff around the sex, but in
Mhm.
my case, all I want is a relationship with none of the sex, none of the risk, none of the stress, and none of the hassle. Because I'm very risk averse generally,
well, I would like
and I
$1 million too.
want a nice, stable, reasonable, rational type platonic friendship where we have as much fun and spend enough time as a boyfriend would, but we just don't have the sex. So if everything about a relationship really is just the fun times and the everything around the sex, then it should not be that hard for me to find someone who just is okay with cutting that sex out and just having a good time all around and just doing stuff, because I don't think it should be that hard. But again, when sex is propped up as some kind of qualifier of maturity or something, I think that's
I agree.
I think that's completely
silly.
fallacious, and I think
Mhm.
it doesn't make any sense to paint sex as a universally positive behavior.
I don't think there's
because
anything
there
wrong
can be
with
many,
being an old,
many
an
negative
like
attributes to it.
a post-adolescent virgin, even if you don't want to be. I don't think there's anything wrong. There's no inherent failure on your part. In that case, too.
Well, the
if-
thing is,
yeah,
I mean, currently
for those
everyone
that
around
applies
me
to.
is in the 20s and they're very hormonal.
Mm.
And I think I'll have a much easier time of it when everyone around me is 40 and completely disillusioned with the process. But
That's the good.
it is
That's a good
unique in
thing
that I have
too.
to-
It's
I
gonna
have
take
to
some
wait until
time,
then.
but patience is a virtue.
Yeah, I have to wait until then.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I suppose I will have to wait until then. But
It's
until then,
annoying
it's
in the
fascinating.
meantime, But you know, once
no, it's really interesting.
Yeah, well,
it's a fascinating time being asexual.
Yeah,
it's very, very interesting.
It's certainly very unique. I would say, yeah.
I suppose. I think also
just statistically speaking.
Right. Mm-hmm. This is the last thing I would say is that you know, for a movement that purportedly claims to, you know, value diversity, acknowledge the differences between people and everything, LGBT needs to do way better at acknowledging and making asexual people feel safe, and also, yeah, like you can't exactly claim to be diverse if you assume that sex is a universal constant. That negates diversity right there.
Yeah.
Also, if you assume that polyamory is the correct option for everyone, because
yeah, that would be cool. Well, if any one size fits all will be wrong, regardless of the polyamory.
State.
Yeah, polyamory, monogamy, sexual, asexual. I
think a lot of people aren't aware
everyone's
that
unique.
Monogamous, a platonic monogamy is an option, and I think if people were aware that was an option, and both polyamory and romance and sex weren't placed on such high pedestals, I legitimately think that like a lot of people would probably just be willing to admit that they were asexual and feel safe in doing so.
How do you?
I have no regrets in doing so.
Could you cheat in a platonic like asexual relationship if one of them?
Literally no. That's the great thing about it is if you have a friend and you're legitimately not having sex with them, not being romantic, you're just pals to the same extent that someone's pals with me. You can't cheat. That's not really possible.
Okay, so you wouldn't feel somewhat betrayed, and outside of if they left they stopped hanging out with you and started hanging out with someone else. That would be obviously a betrayal. But other than that, that's fine.
Yeah,
that's great.
If they went with the other friend instead of me.
Yeah, that's like if they obviously right. That would be a problem.
That would be much less of a betrayal than just going with someone because they can have sex with them, because in that case it's unfair because I'm unable to engage in pheromonal transfer with them. And so if they chose someone else to be friends with a lot over me, I would not consider that cheating. I would consider that completely fair because they would be basically pointing out that the other person had desirable characteristics that I don't. It would be completely.
So you
problem comes when someone's able to seduce them via pretty lies and sultry words and the process of sex, which is inherently a very facetious one.
What about if a friend has like a one-night stand?
I can forgive that. I mean, I'm capable of, being forgiving and understanding.
Maturity.
But if they just keep having sex with this one guy and they completely ignore me and act as if I'm worth nothing, then all I can do. And the problem also is that I'm not given any say whatsoever in how my relationships work. I am given literally no power or any say in what goes on. If they just keep having sex over and on, and they don't understand that it hurts my feelings or ruins our friendship even a little bit, then all I can say to them is, okay, go on and have sex, but we're not going to be friends anymore because we have literally nothing in common. To get along with over. So
well, that's not entirely true. I mean, like, what if they just don't tell you and they have a bunch of casual sex sometimes, but they're your good friend and they just don't really tell you about it a lot.
That makes it very difficult. Like I say, it'd be the easiest with an asexual because you could completely trust them.
Then you don't have to worry about it.
There'd be no risk of that.
But that would feel like a betrayal to you if they were having casual sex.
Existence to know that everyone is consistently engaging in this hobby of theirs, and you are continuously left out and can never really understand it or even know what it's like. Yeah, it is a complete completely alienating experience. I hope to meet some asexuals. Anyway,
we have a comment I can read. Someone says,
sure.
Says Evelyn says, I am kinda in an identity crisis, and I have been questioning asexuality for a long time, and I don't know what's wrong with me. In parentheses, I don't think anything is wrong with other ace people, but being ace in a sex-centered environment is hard, as they say. So do you have any advice for this person?
I would say that, yeah, I have some advice. If you don't enjoy sex, do not have sex. If you don't want to have sex, if you feel unsafe in any given scenario, if you feel you're being coerced against your will into doing something you don't want to do, don't do it. And assert your own will and autonomy and freedom of choice, because ultimately you have that as a human being. And I think that's a very fundamental and important human right. Mm-hmm. But if you do enjoy sex, if you've had a lot of sex and you tend to enjoy it, just acknowledge you're an allosexual. If you don't enjoy sex, if it's not fun for you, if you feel like it's an obligation or a hassle or not a fun time, you're probably asexual, and you should probably just look for someone who values you more and treats you better. That'd be my advice. And again, I give very cut and dry type. I give a very cut and dry type answer to this, because I think if it's not difficult to tell whether or not you're asexual. I've known I was asexual ever since I knew what the word meant, which I didn't learn in high school sex ed. I had to learn completely after high school, because they don't even teach you this kind of thing in public education.
So
but yeah, if you enjoy sex,
did you ever feel out of place? You're like, why does everyone seem to be developing?
I was never attracted to anyone my entire life, but everyone just kept saying, "Oh, that'll happen when you grow up. That'll happen when you grow up."
You just figured.
I'm 22, and I still never have. And I learned it of my own volition.
Good stuff.
I never felt too different from anyone. I mean, before they were having sex, obviously, I felt I didn't know that I didn't even know asexuality was an option, because all I knew was being gay or straight.
Yeah.
But I would say that if you enjoy sex, then you are allosexual. If you don't enjoy sex, you're asexual. It's about like that.
Pretty much.
So I'd say you should recognize whether or not you like it, and if you don't like it, then don't have it.
Yeah, and Evelyn commenter, if you make sure to upload. If you subscribe to me, I can link you over to Nick here, and so you can subscribe to their channel and you can watch more of their videos.
Yeah, it'll be on my end too.
All right. Do you have any questions for me about my sort of opposite experience?
No, not particularly. I think we've done a decent overview of the benefits of polyamory versus monogamy. I would just say that I would like to reiterate the idea that jealousy and sexual attraction are both primal desires and feelings that can be overcome through will.
Yeah.
And I think that to hold them to separate standards, to say, well, you can be in this polycule of 50 people and love everyone equally and have sex with everyone equally and never experience any kind of jealousy, that can very much happen. It takes a lot of work and effort to get all 50 people going on the same page evenly, and to make sure that they never feel a shred of jealousy towards each other.
The way that it usually works is that it's like everybody is dating each other. So it's like instead of a guy with two girlfriends, it's like two girlfriends, a guy and a girl, and then a girl and a guy, and the two girls are also dating each other separate from the guy too. So,
And And what I would say is that if you can overcome jealousy like that, you can also overcome the need to engage in sexual or romantic behavior with anyone, and you can exist entirely as a mental, emotional type being who just thinks.
I feel like you can overcome I think you can overcome the compulsion of sex to the point of it being an issue, but I don't think, and the same thing with jealousy, but I mean, I don't think you can turn a sexual person to an asexual person and vice versa. I don't think that, just the same way you can't turn a gay person straight. I don't think any convincing or anything will be possible. It's just that it's just their sex drive might change, or it's also self-control, being if you are sexual,
but
if you're asexual, it doesn't really matter.
I think that human autonomy and free will and the ability to make decisions about when and when not to have sex, that's kind of underestimated. I think people can make smart, rational decisions about when and when not to have sex, and they can abandon themselves during the sex, but I think around the sex, it's very important to be conscious and understanding of what whoever you're with needs and whether or not they actually want to have sex with you.
Yeah.
And I would also say that I do believe that sex contributes very heavily to gender roles. I think that if people stopped having sex and didn't consider each other a boyfriend, a girlfriend, anything like that, people would have way less gender roles, and people would consider themselves just people a lot more and just kind of focus on their thoughts and feelings. And I am in a very unique position in that I am not non-binary. I'm not trans. I'm completely cis, and I consider myself a guy completely. I was born a guy. I consider myself a guy. But I think it's very reductive to reduce masculinity to having sex. I think that's a reductive view of masculinity.
That's entirely patriarchy. I'm a gender abolitionist also, so I think gender is I think
that the development of the mind is a masculine trait that I put a great deal of stock into, and I think is very neat. And so I'm cis, but I'm completely asexual. I'm in a unique position on that because I've never experienced anything remotely approaching body dysmorphia. I don't care about my body. I completely ignore my reproductive system. I don't even know what it's for, but. I would say that also puts me in sort of a unique spot because there are a lot of trans ace people. There's a lot of non-binary ace people. I don't understand the process of feeling alienated in one's own body at all. My body's about the only place that makes sense to me, and I totally get.
But you can empathize with a trans person having that dysphoria, even though you don't feel it or know what they feel like. Right?
It's similar. It's similar to sex. It's something that I acknowledge that people certainly have, and that causes a great deal of.
Have you ever felt gender euphoria, where you felt really like
not
masculine? Yeah, I just mentioned that's hard for an asexual.
Yeah, it's just gender apathy. I don't care that I'm a guy. If I was a girl, I wouldn't particularly care that I was a girl because it's never relevant. And I just prefer thinking.
You might be lucky to be a man because someone with your perspective, as a female, you would, or as a femme presenting person, you would probably get propositioned a lot more, and it would be a lot more annoying. Thankfully, as a man, that probably doesn't happen very much.
The thing is, if you're a girl and you're asexual or aromantic and you get flirted with a lot, which I don't. Girls don't come up to me and say, "Hey,"
it doesn't usually go the other way around very much.
And that's a problem too because again, these are obviously gender roles at play. I would like a more forward, active type girl who knows what she wants, is very active and open, and just. Is basically I approach any type of relationship basically with the hesitancy and reluctance of a girl. I'm very much not forward going or anything, but I would say that it's very nice to be able to speak to girls as much as I want with zero romantic or sexual tension. It's something the average straight guy can't do.
I would think that would help you make more friends because you're a lot more confident.
Yeah, I can talk to girls a lot, and I can be great friends with them. But once it comes time to, to have a boyfriend or to start up the sex, then it kind of goes downhill. But up until that point, it's very easy because there's no sexual tension. There might be romantic attraction on their end, which makes things kind of awkward. But I just reassure them. My advice, if you're an ace or aro girl, is it might be very annoying to have guys flirt with you all the time. But with me, I have to actively try to make friends. So if there's guys who are constantly being annoying or say that they just want to be friends when obviously they actually want to have sex, my advice would be just string them along for as long as they'll stand it. And then, once they say time to have sex, just get rid of them, because But up until that point, you can have a great deal of fun with them, and don't take for granted that people want to be around you and want to talk to you and stuff, because that can kind of fulfill the need, even if it's all a pretense. Just kind of take advantage of that. In my case, it doesn't happen, so I think that's kind of lucky.
Yeah. Well, so let's end on the question from the audience. I think you already answered this, but just for clarification, Evelyn asks,
Sure.
How old were we when we realized our sexuality? So why don't you go first?
Like I said, I've always known I was asexual. I've never experienced a single sexual or romantic thought, but I don't know if this is just the case in Denver, but the sexual education course I took did not mention asexuality at all. Completely left it out. So I was very confused. Yeah, they talk about bisexuality. They talk about how to put a condom on, all this stuff that I knew even at that point would be completely irrelevant to me.
That's unfortunate.
And it's miserable, because the whole time I was growing up, I thought I would either be straight or gay, and I had no idea that asexuality was a thing. I was probably about at 19. It was a little after I got out of high school, and was able to look stuff up, freely access information. That was a new thing to me.
Yeah.
And I think first. I've always been big into Archie comics, and there's the character Jughead in that. Jughead is the best representation of asexuality in pop culture.
Good.
Anywhere.
Good to know.
It's very, and he's been around since 1942, so he's technically one of the first LGBT characters in comics, but no one acknowledges that, because asexuality is always overlooked and sidelined and erased.
It's never mentioned in text.
Yeah, I read that. And I found Jughead very relatable, because the premise is he just doesn't like girls. He doesn't like thoughts of romance or sex or anything. He likes eating a lot, but he doesn't like sex. And he's there again to provide kind of a contrast with the main character Archie, who's totally horned up all the time, which is an example of great writing. I think the first time I heard the term asexual was in a Nathan For You skit.
Really?
The asexual computer repair one, yeah.
Huh.
That's the first time I actually heard the term asexual, and I wasn't quite sure if it applied to me, but after about another year or so, I realized, that applies to me. I'm 100% that. And I would recommend the asexual computer repair skit. It's very funny. From Nathan For You, but that's the first point. Yeah, I didn't learn this important terminology from my high school sex ed. I learned it from a comedy show.
Yeah.
But yeah, the asexual computer repair skit. That's the first time I heard it, and I was probably about 20 when I heard that. I'm 22 now.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's very cool to be this age and be able to know what I am before I make any kind of drastic mistake or something.
Yeah.
Because there are so many asexuals throughout history. I can only imagine who have felt pressured into having sex, and the term wasn't even in common usage, and they had to. That's no fun. So I am glad to be part of this generation.
There's
that,
a CJ
the first
the
type
X video that just came out that had a word for that. It was like, I forget what the word was, but it was like some kind of terrorism where it's like a group of people are oppressed through the fact that there's no word to describe their oppression. So they don't even have the word. Like the word sexual harassment wasn't a thing until like the 70s.
Right, yeah.
So women.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah, so that's
it's a good example.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to be the age I am now, where I'm completely sure of what I am and know exactly what I am. I'm glad there's a term for it, and I hope to increase visibility and representation by any means possible, as much as possible. I think that's a cause worth fighting for, and I literally never sell out on it.
Yeah, great. Well, keep going. For my answer to the question is, mine's a little hard to say, because I really as a sort of a very, you know, anarchistic, I like everybody, I want everybody to love everybody kind of a person. I am straight, but I wish I was bi. So I tried several times. I even actually had a relationship with another guy for about a month, but and he was a great guy. I really did. Like, I think that I am definitely pan-romantic. Like, I loved him, and I had romantic feelings for him, and I can appreciate the male form, but sexually speaking, I really only get aroused for women, the female body and parts. And that took me until my early 20s to figure out, because I used to I was confused because I developed sexual attraction kind of later in life. Like, I sort of pretended to have it and kind of like did it and talked about it with other people because I knew that I liked girls and that I wanted to like have sex and stuff, also because of patriarchal pressure and stuff like that. And I would look at porn and stuff, but sometimes it would kind of gross me out just because like I was just not quite ready for it. But yeah, it wasn't until I was definitely closer to like your age, like 22 or 20, maybe like 21-ish or something like that, or maybe even 18, I don't know. But one time I just saw a lady and her body just, like, I literally just, like, I can't describe it. I was just like, wow. Like, it was just something that I couldn't...
I hear that often what it is. It's very sudden.
Yeah.
It never happens to me. Whenever I see I see someone, I'm just like, I want to talk with them for a long time and maybe read some, but I definitely don't. I don't even notice people's physical forms a lot of the time.
Yeah, it's like tasting a food you've never tasted before. Like, you cannot describe the sensation. Like, if you've never had sour candy or something before and then you try it for the first time, you're just like, whoa, this is... Yeah. I've had no idea. Like, it's such an interesting experience.
It must be interesting to experience something new like that, but in my case, it's also very interesting to know that you will never experience something new like that.
That is very interesting, yeah.
And
I feel that way about tomatoes. I don't think I'm ever going to like tomatoes.
I would say that if you're straight, you know, don't be envious of someone with asexuality or anything, because there's an entirely different set of insecurities and hang-ups and just
not
like
to
general
all of the lack of representation.
Like being straight obviously carries its own fair share of hang-ups and issues and neuroticism, but being asexual, it's even worse because you do have all these insecurities and problems and things that you don't even know how to articulate half the time, and you can't share them with anyone in a way that will make them relate to it. So
yeah, literally, it's like describing colors to a blind person or something.
Right, exactly. Qualia. It's qualia. Yeah.
Qualia. That's the word. Yeah.
So, you know, be glad that you have people who you can you know, relate to in some capacity and know what they're going through and what their time is like. 'Cause
that's what it is. My goal is I really want to have the most positive qualia that I can without, you know, it becoming a problem. I really like pleasure and enjoyment and love and you know, in all its forms, you know, platonic, tribal, all that stuff, self, universal, romantic, everything. I just love love. I think that it's such an important thing.
Be glad that you can experience all 5 of those, and you know, don't take it for granted. Don't take it for granted.
I definitely will try not to.
You can go through all 5.
Especially since I also actually was lucky enough to have that brief experience with my drug addiction where I did feel very asexual, and I was just like, it was helping me getting over a breakup as well too. So that so you know that's the thing. But you
can experience. You can experience learning from breakups. You can experience what you like, what you don't like. You can learn from a negative process, whereas my negative process will just be someone telling me they don't want to be my friend anymore, and me just being like, oh, okay. And there's not any of the heartbreak. My feelings are hurt, but my heart isn't broken. My heart isn't broken because that's a romantic term. but I never really learn
hit as
anything,
hard.
and I just repeat the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
So you can actually learn from your mistakes and learn what you like and don't.
I mean,
like.
you still can. It's just that, like you said, you don't feel heartbreak so much as you just realize that, okay, well, these kind of people I probably won't get along with in the future.
I kind of question if I ever will learn from my mistakes, because everyone around me operates on the same principles, and I kind of have to interact with someone, or I just will never interact with anyone. So I keep having to enter the same type of scenario, and
if you could
it just
get
keeps going. And
asexual therapist or something like that, I bet that would be really
an asexual anyone. I could relate
really.
a lot more to at least one person.
Mm.
I would say it's cool that you felt a suppressed sex drive on opioids. That's not asexuality, but in one of my favorite books, Naked Lunch, you discuss heroin addiction, and it's roughly the same. It's about the same type of detached quality.
Yeah, it's an interesting time. Yeah, definitely, like you said, suppressed sexuality rather than obviously, because I was still sexual.
Right.
Suppressed.
Imagine a lifetime like that with none of the sluggishness or inactivity.
It can seem certainly like a kind of a superpower in some ways. It can. I can definitely view it that way. But I can also
canon that I can transcend all preconceived notions of romantic or sexual relationships, and I can completely transgress those in every conceivable way. But on the other hand, people don't like when I do, so I mean, people resent me a lot for that.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate.
I have no idea why they even do.
I'm happy to know you, and I look forward to speaking again in the future, either on or off stream or whatever.
Yes, it's been a fantastic. It's been a fascinating talk.
Yeah. All right, well, Nick, if you have anything else you want to say, otherwise we'll just get going, and I'll make sure I
think I got with all of it. Just this will be posted on your channel and mine, and
Yep. All right, and
thanks for listening.